House of Representatives passes for second reading over 607 billion naira Federal Capital Territory 2022 budget estimate. Again, House holds National Summit on Tertiary Education Reforms, while former President Olusegun Obasanjo as guest on special panel exposes rots in the system. Speaker Gbajabiamila speaks with nostalgia.
The issues to me is that we are cutting more than we can chew. But you ask, where did we miss the road? We missed the road when the whole world is talking of full education, education for all, and we did not follow that. It was a bad miss.
Time was when the tertiary institutions in our country were centers of excellence, comparable to the best institutions anywhere in the world. It used to be that a student admitted to the university knew the date of their graduation and graduated on that day. And it was at a time, that a career in academia guaranteed stable employment and an honorable quality of life. For the most part, all of these now exist as memories of a distant past. But it really wasn't so long ago.
This and more on The Maze this week. I am Rosemary Ukokotega. Thanks for joining us. You can watch us on DSTV channel 392, StarTimes TV channel 127, on Free TV channel 547, on the UHF band we are on channel 38. You can as well download the app for Android at the Google Play Store, and for iOS devices, download the app at the App Store. We go on a quick break and to proceed shortly.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite. This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television StarTimes Channel 127, Free TV Channel 507, and UHF Channel 38.
You're watching The Maze on ASO Television. We take off with the House of Representatives passing for second reading the sum of 607 billion 952 million 23,580 naira as budget estimates of the Federal Capital Territory for the 2022 fiscal year. Deputy Majority Leader of the House, Mr. Peter Akpatasin, presented the bill providing a breakdown of the figure.
The budget is broken down to recurrent, expenditure as well as capital expenditure. Now, for the previous year running, 2021, the total personnel cost was at 74,382,813 kobo. Overhead cost for the same period was 67 billion 173,250,111 naira. The total amounts to 141,496,632,928 kobo only. And then for the recurring expenditure, actual expenditure rather, we had 2021 74 billion 139,912,289.42 kobo, which is 90% of the total expenditure. The overhead cost totaled 78%. Then the total expenditure for the period was 141 billion 196,632,924 naira. The actual amounted to 126 billion 877,164,033 kobo, which amounts to 90%. Total recurrent and capital for the year, it totals 90 here, and then the capital expenditure is 188 billion 464,858,598 kobo. Actual capital 88 billion 253,622,858.21 kobo, totaling 47.
Still from the Green Chamber, stakeholders in the tertiary education sector converged on the nation's capital within the week at the instance of the House of Representatives to discuss issues affecting the sector and possible reforms. The 2 days event featured paper presentations, discussion panels, and goodwill messages. The session officially kicked off with welcome remarks by the Speaker, House of Representatives, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila.
Our nation's greatest resource is not the oil that flows through our deltas, nor the abundant minerals that lie underground in every corner of our country. Our most incredible resource has always been the Nigerian people. Now, this immense collection of tongues and tribes, bound together under one flag, striving through adversity and achieving despite every obstacle. As we are gathered here this morning, our course is more than to seek solutions to challenges of tertiary education in Nigeria. In fact, we are here today on a mission to save Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, a just society cannot guarantee its citizens equal outcomes, any more than a doctor can promise eternal good health. What we can and must do is ensure all our citizens are afforded equal opportunities to succeed or fail on their own. For Nigeria to reach its potential and achieve the greatness we are capable of, we must invest in our people. We must build ladders of opportunity that allow our citizens to scale great heights and achieve their best dreams. In this generation, social, economic, and political development is and will continue to be powered by advancements in information and communication technologies. We must provide the resources to modernize and improve our education infrastructure and provide the right training for young people from primary through tertiary education. This goes to the heart of our survival as a nation and as a people. I say that because I believe our country will not survive long if our children cease to believe their best dreams are possible here. More than at any other time in our history, we are called to speak truthfully to one another about the challenges we face and the hard choices necessary to overcome those challenges. Allow me this morning, therefore, to speak the truth as I see it, so that together we can agree on what we need to do to overcome. Time was when the tertiary institutions in our country were centers of excellence, comparable to the best institutions anywhere in the world. There was a time when our brothers and sisters from across Africa and even farther sought out our institutions and we welcomed them in droves. That time, sadly, is no more. It used to be that a student admitted to the university knew the date of their graduation and graduated on that day. And it was at a time, that a career in academia guaranteed stable employment and an honorable quality of life. For the most part, all of these now exist as memories of a distant past. But it really wasn't so long ago. I do not speak of these things to mourn the past or dwell in the memory of what was. I speak from a place of hope that by reminding ourselves of what was, we might be inspired to embrace the possibility of all that could be if we make the right choices now. For 8 months this year, students of federal tertiary institutions sat at home due to a litany of unresolved issues between the academic staff union of universities. And I'm glad that the past president and the current president and members of ASU are here present today. Our students sat at home for 8 months, and the federal government, between the federal government and ASU. Now, these university strikes are almost perennial and preceded this government. The recent one was not the first, and sadly may not be the last, unless we determine to make it so. The end of the strike was a relief to all. It meant the resumption of academic activities and a return to routine for students. However, the end of the strike did not mean all the issues of funding, education standard, and student and staff welfare had been resolved. At the time, I called for the government, universities, unions, and citizens to see the moment as an opportunity to begin the critical conversation about the future of public tertiary education in this country. This National Summit on Tertiary Education Reform is the manifestation of our commitment in the 9th House of Representatives to engender a national conversation, to consider bold ideas and radical innovations to restructure and reform public tertiary education in Nigeria. How do we ensure that every child born in Nigeria in this generation and hereafter can compete favorably in an ever-changing world? This is the defining issue of our age. And the answer is simple. We do it by providing a quality education that empowers the mind to ask hard questions and accept complicated solutions. We do it by training our people to revel in inquiry, embrace complexity, and not be afraid of knotty problems. By all means, in a perfect world, access to education will be a fundamental benefit afforded to every individual from basic through tertiary. And our learning centers will be majestic citadels of research and innovation, open to all who seek knowledge, regardless of means. But this is not a perfect world. In this real world, education is a commodity, and a quality education even more so. Therefore, the central public policy challenge is the conflict between the competing objectives of access and quality. How do we fund a quality tertiary education without imposing costs that make access to quality education impossible for most people? Now that's a big question. I don't have answer to that question. I have my own ideas, and I have, as a legislator, sought to advance those ideas through the legislative policy process. Ladies and gentlemen, I have often said that nation building is a joint task. Our best visions for Nigeria can only be achieved through the dedicated efforts of men and women of good conscience acting in the collective best interest of this country. This is one such defining moment when our forward march requires that we harness the best of who we are in a joint endeavor to break down the barriers that limit us and set our sights on the stars that lie beyond the horizon. All of you who have answered the call to participate in this project have shown your dedication to our nation. We will honor your commitment by ensuring that this summit produces specific action to achieve monumental transformation in our nation's tertiary education system. I want to assure you all that by the grace of God and the works of our hands, the Nigeria of our dreams is still possible and attainable, and we will get there together.
It was then time for a special panel discussion involving former Vice Chancellors of Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Federal University of Technology, Minna, and Lagos State University. That session centered on the theme of the summit, Reimagining Tertiary Education in Nigeria, Issues, Challenges and Solutions, was led by the former President, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, urging the federal government to get 20 million out-of-school children back to class to avert pending future security issues.
When it concerns education, it is of great priority for me. And I will leave all other things to attend to education, and I will come back to that. One or two stories I've heard about students who could not go to schools. Some of them are ruined for life because they have engaged in things that will affect them throughout the rest of their life. I then challenge all of us. Tertiary education is very important. But education per se, particularly popular education, that has left 20 million of our children out of school. And those 20 million have no access to education. They cannot be effectively part of nation building because they have not had opportunity to develop their innate capacity to the extent that they can be useful to themselves, to their family, and to their community, let alone the nation. Let alone Africa. Now, the tertiary education is important. And my emphasis will be on education properly. Because the 5 points that I have taken from your speech, and brilliant speech you have made, are zeroed on education in general, although we have the issue of ASU and the government. And that will be an unending, in my time we had it, but we must find a solution. So what are the issues? The issues, to me, is that we are cutting more than we can chew. And who is looking at our population ahead of time, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And what can we do about it? And apart from food, which is very important, which I am, food production, food security, nutrition security, who are the people thinking about that and working forward to that? Health. The third important aspect of our life is education. After food and after health. Now, if this is the position, and these are rights that we must have, right to food security, right to health, and right to education, what do we do? We know that if we continue the way we are going, by the year 2030, what our population will be. By the year 2040, what our population will be. by the year 2050 what our population will be. It's not the case of a cousin of mine whose wife delivered and came to me and said, "Uncle, give me money." I said, "What for?" He said, "For an emergency." I said, "What is the emergency?" He said, "My wife has just delivered." I said, "Your wife was pregnant for 9 months." He said, "Yes." "How can your wife being pregnant for 9 months and delivering a child be an emergency?" He said, "I didn't think about it." Now, could it be that we won't think about what our population, how we will sort it out? And I believe that you ask, where did we miss the road?
I'm asking more specifically what opportunities we have missed.
We missed the road when the whole world is talking of full education for all, and we did not follow that. It was a bad miss. Education for all. We even have target date globally. We today, out of 244 million children out of school, we have 20 million, almost 10%. We miss, we continue to miss, and we are missing. That is a very, very bad one. Can we do anything about it? I believe we can. I believe we can.
What can we do?
Those 20 million children that are out of school, we can get them back to school. If we don't get them back to school, we are preparing for Boko Haram of tomorrow. And nobody needs to tell you anything about that. It will happen. It will happen as sure as daylight. It will happen. And what can we do? Where are these 20 million children? Where are they located? Can we have schools in the morning and school in the afternoon to get them in at least for 6 years? In this period of 6 years where this is happening, we will prepare for the transition from primary school to secondary school. And if we are able to do that, we have started the process with education, instrument of nation building. And education, the tertiary, of course, you have, but even your workforce, I believe anybody who is able to, through secondary school, have the basic to prepare himself as a working person. And that is possible. And that must be the minimum. And I believe Nigeria has the resources to be able to get all the children of Nigeria through secondary education. All the children of Nigeria, no exception, male and female.
Now, while that might be, that's certainly a possibility. I mean, if government were to look deep within, I'm sure it can find the resources to ensure that all young people between the ages, children of school age are able to go to school. But what we really want to focus on right now is tertiary education.
Yes, that's where I'm disagreeing with you. I think I'm making myself clear that tertiary education is taken at the top. In the case of a crippled, and you look at his load on his head and he's bending, and you say, "Hey, let me help you put your load right." He said, "Look at it at the bottom." Now, what are you doing at the top when the bottom is rotten? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Now, I agree with the speaker. With the speaker, I agree with the executive secretary. I agree with the Minister of State. Now, the tertiary education requires attention, but not only tertiary education, secondary education requires attention, primary attention. If you pay attention to tertiary and you
secondary and primary,
then you are trying to straighten the load of the cripple and just the load. What you need to try and straighten is his leg, and when you straighten his leg, his load will be straightened. Now, I believe to a large extent that is our problem.
Let me ask you if you think that if government can find the resources to ensure that all children are able to go to school from primary to secondary, education, do you think that government also has sole responsibility to fund tertiary education?
Education is not responsibility of government alone. Education is the responsibility of all. If you leave education in the hands of government alone, you are making a mistake. What of the parents? What of religious leaders? What of the community? They all have responsibility in the education of the child. In my part of the world, we say 4 eyes bring a child to the world. 200 eyes bring train a child. And this, or a village, train a child. And that training of a child by responsibility of the community.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much for that response.
Yeah, well,
I'll come to you again.
Former Vice Chancellor Michael Okpara, University of Agriculture, Professor Hilary Edioga, former Vice Chancellor, Federal University of Technology, Mina, Professor Haman Tukor Sahad, and former Vice Chancellor, Lagos State University, Professor Oluwatoyin Ogundikpe, as co-panelists, spoke on a number of issues ranging from funding to operational structure and infrastructure development of the tertiary institutions.
Like the former president said, it is not only the government that should be involved in the funding of tertiary education at the lower level of education in Nigeria. The community will need to be involved. The mosques, the churches, the leaders will have to be involved. And also the companies that we have in Nigeria will need to be involved. It's not only in the issue of awarding scholarship to some of the students that matters. There is need for them to invest in tertiary education in Nigeria by funding specific projects in Nigerian universities, polytechnic, monotechnics. Because the reason why I'm saying this is based on my little experience in the University of Lagos. Many of the companies that we have in Nigeria are not participating in funding tertiary education in Nigeria. The communities that we have in Nigeria, they are expecting something from the tertiary education, the institutions in their community. And apart from that, the missions, that is the churches, the mosques, who are even supposed to support, we have few of them who are showing interest in that area. So I believe, like the former president said, that the community would need to participate in funding education. The companies in Nigeria, I will not mention the company, and I will not mention the university that I went for my postdoc in the UK, you find out that the company in Nigeria has the best laboratory, the food technology laboratory in that university. And I know that that company is making a lot of money in Nigeria, but there's no project, no research, nothing that they are funding in any Nigerian universities. So there's need for us to look at that direction. In fact, some of these companies, they left Nigeria to go to Ghana, but they are not making sales. They came back to Nigeria and they're making a lot of profit. So there's need for the house to look at the possibilities of getting these companies involved, and if need be for them to have tax waiver or something like that, that will make them, I believe, to show more interest in funding tertiary education system in Nigerian universities. Thank you.
Do you also think that there is a framework in place for companies to be able to come in without let or hindrance?
Thank you very much. In the Nigerian university system, to the best of my knowledge, the companies have easy access to the universities. Once they can get the council of the university involved, the issue of giving maybe tax waiver for companies that are showing interest in investing in tertiary education in Nigeria, Nigerian university. Issue of ASU, like the former president said, that problem will always come up until we are able to sit down together and see ourselves as partners in moving the university system forward. When I was chairman, when I was the VC of the University of Lagos, once I get any message from the union members, I call them for a meeting, except I'm out of Lagos. So we should see them as partners in moving the system forward. We should not see them as enemies of the system. And the third point from what you have raised, that companies are interested. Yes, what they want to know is what is in need for us. What do you plan to give to that company? Because there's no free lunch. Somebody has paid for it, you have to work for it. Do you want to tell those companies, if you fund or you do this for us, during the admission process, we'll be able to give your company this number of admission people based on your interest who have met our requirement. We have what we call the discretionary admission, which we can give to your company. There must be something that they are going to get. If them to get, they will not show interest.
Should not be looked at as the enemy of the university. Rather, they should be looked at as those who really want the university to be in the best form, to deliver their role as a character molding institutions. The solution to everything is what? Partnership. We in the university and the government have to go into a system whereby we partner to make sure that the university, because the underlying problem is that of what? Money, fund. If fund is available, ASU will not go on strike. So I think our colleagues, together with the government, should explore the possibility of going into partnership with those companies we are talking, those individuals we are talking, organizations, and if that is done, we won't have much problem of fund, because the stage we are now is just like the situation of a pregnant woman with a broken waist. You don't know how to back her. If there's money, nobody will hate not to do his job and make money. Look at, in this year, out of 12 months, colleagues were not paid 8 months' salaries. The partnership will resolve all these problems. But while talking of partnership, the government too will also help. As a vice chancellor of a university of agriculture, a company came from Brazil to cultivate cassava, and from cassava produce ethanol, biofuel, but up to date, we couldn't get CFO from government. And the CFO, certificate of office, was the first requirement for that company to come. Because they don't want to come and establish a place where to borrow the locals, the natives, to say this is where my grandfather was buried, and as such you should protect. So government should also partner with the universities in removing such bottlenecks. If these are done, I don't see any problem. Then to colleagues too, let all of us also try and market the university. So we must bring every stakeholder together to partner so that at the end of the day, we will not have the problem or the challenge of funding, which is the main thing, the main challenge we have in tertiary institutions in Nigeria.
Many people running universities don't study the law. Nobody in the ministry studies the individual law of every university. ASU members may, but ASU, as they are, they are opportunistic. They know it's better to deal with government and make noise, go to the video, go to the radio, go to this, and squeeze government to sign things that are illegal. Who is ASU? They are not employed by government. Government too is wrong by putting them in IPIS. But if you look, any university law says the council is your employer. And another problem in Nigerian university system. Now the council is your employer. Then we had this autonomy bill. Sorry to say, you are said you sign the first one. See? They brought a bill to the table. We are following. I was the vice chancellor. They said, August Sanjo said, over his dead body. You are handing over this university to unions. And that's what's happening now. You have a council where you have 3/4 of the members are also the ones who are employing. And they are the ones who are determining how now you should run this university. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. In America, this is a conflict of interest. If you are a member of academic or something, you cannot be in the BOT unless you are vice chancellor as honorary member. Here, the unions have dribbled government into making this autonomy bill, which our wise father refused to sign. In between hospital journeys, they got Umar to sign that bill, Yaradua. Yaradua, unfortunately, was not well that time. I am an ASU member, and you know. So we are now settled with a problem, fundamental problem, where you have a law that allows the council to run the university. So ASU I sit down with government, and they say, okay, senior lecturer, you should get 200,000. Your allowances for housing is 150,000 or whatever it is. Can that sustain somebody in Lagos? You want to have a blank sheet that says everybody who is a senior lecturer should get the same money, whether the one in my village.
Minister of State for Education, Mr. Goodluck Oppia, and Senate President Ahmed Lawan, represented by Leader of the Senate, were part of guests who delivered goodwill messages.
I extend warm and sincere appreciation to Right Honorable Speaker Femi Badabimela and his team for passionately intervening in the face of ASU and organizing this summit, which I believe is in continuation of the Speaker's commitment to ensure that the legislature contributes to creating a stable environment for our tertiary education sector. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it will be noted that at the inception of the administration, this administration in 2015, the Federal Minister of Education, under the leadership of Madam Adamu, initiated a consultative group of experts, professionals, international development partners, and other relevant stakeholders across the country to discuss the key issues and challenges of education sector and to chart a way forward. The main objective of that initiative was to reform the education sector in general. The outcome of the consultative forum was presented as Education for Change, a Ministerial Strategic Plan, MSP. The Ministerial Strategic Plan articulates the pathway to repositioning Nigeria's education sector to effectively play its central role in achieving the development agenda. The plan is built on 10 pillars and around 3 result areas, namely access quality and system strengthening. A comprehensive focus of the plan is on tertiary education and subsector with well-defined objectives and strategies for implementation. I wish to inform this gathering that there are 215 universities, 4 inter-university centers, 219 polytechnics, monotechnics, 115 colleges of education, 115 colleges of education, and 147 innovation enterprise institutions in Nigeria. Of all these, there are 49 federal universities, 40 federal polytechnics, 27 colleges of education, 19 monotechnics, 25 vocational enterprise institutions, 7 innovation enterprise institutions under the purview of the Federal Ministry of Education. Beginning from the 80s and 90s, a number of socio-economic developments started to impact negatively on the image of Nigerian public universities. As more universities were established to improve access to the growing population, the dwindling economic realities made it difficult for government to sustain the adequate funding to maintain the quality of teaching and learning, infrastructure, as well as maintain the compensation structure necessary for attracting global talent needed to sustain intellectualism.
The state of our tertiary education has often been in focus because of the many challenges before them, including especially the dearth of facilities and utilities, which are incidentally key requirements for the smooth functioning of the academia. We have often also been witnesses of industrial actions by education sector related unions, and what additionally points to the inadequacies in the sector. What this means is that we must be ready to be in the process of finding solutions to the myriad of issues frequently leading to the disagreements. We obviously have no option but to continue on this path of the resolutions because of the crucial roles that tertiary institutions play in the molding of the nation's human capacity, that is quotient.
Well, those were some of activities at day 1 of the summit. We will do well to bring more presentations as well as panel sessions still from day 1 and day 2 of the summit in our subsequent editions of the program. From the Red Chamber, senators passed for second reading a bill for an act to establish Nigeria Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone somewhere in Benue State. The bill is being sponsored by Senator Abba Moro, representing Benue South. Let's have him speak on the general principle of the bill and prospects.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I remind us that Nigeria is a nation with a large tract of arable land and relatively cheap labor, and should ordinarily be able to feed itself sufficiently with excess for export. Sadly, Nigeria is a gross importer of food and agricultural products with a high inflation rate, extreme hunger, and a struggling agricultural sector. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I mention that in Nigeria, agricultural revolutions has always been at the center of most agro-economic policies of past governments, with the objective of diversifying the economy using crude oil as a springboard. However, gross inadequate implementation has impeded success of such policies, and the consequence is a monocultural economy that has made Nigeria an importer of even the tiniest agricultural product as toothpaste. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the establishment of the Nigeria Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Atagani, Benue State, will augment the value chain commodities across the country, which will entail the development and operation of agricultural industrial processing clusters in the zone to engender competitiveness in agro-industrial development, production, and processing that is critical to further unlock the potential of Nigeria's agriculture, to improve food security, reduce post-harvest losses, create jobs, as well as wealth for Nigeria. May I add, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, that with the coming of the Nigerian Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Atagani, Benue State, dry season farming will be encouraged in Nigeria to produce additional food in the dry season, where less food has been traditionally produced. In line with Order 76 of the Senate Standing Order rules with regards to bills, a copy of the compendium for the establishment of the Agricultural Harvest and Processing Free Zone at Atagani, Benue State is hereby attached. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I urge you all to support this inclusive and sustainable agricultural, industrial development bill and pass it accordingly.
Still from the Red Chamber on the same day, a bill seeking to establish the Nigeria Police Special Forces and the Nigeria Police Special Forces Training School passed second reading. Senator Ali Ndume, representing Chibok and Goza Senatorial District, Borno State, sponsored the bill.
This bill, initially, what I captured for the bill is Nigerian Police Mobile Force and Special Forces Academy Goza. But I did it in consultation with the IGP, who recommended by his response here that it should rather be known as what I said now. Nigerian, yes, yeah. No, it's combined. It's combined, an institution within. So that's why I said, at this second reading stage, the committee or this assembly will have the opportunity, having agreed that there is a need to have a special institution that will not only train the mobile police, but special forces can be trained because of the institutions, that is the mobile training camp Limankara, as Dibka pointed out, what it used to be. In fact, other countries, like African countries, were sending their police for training in that particular institution before now. The major problem they have, as in every institution, is the issue of funding, the issue of legality, the issue of what they need to do according to international standard. So if this establishment, even though under the police, will have a standing budget, will have a desired output, will have the ability to provide training to other institutions. Let me say here that what we are faced with now and we are trying to address by the Nigerian Army is, in fact, not constitutionally the work of the Nigerian Army, but it is the work of the police. But the challenge we have with the police now is they lack that special training. I can assure you, had it been we have special forces, the involvement of the Nigerian Army in addressing internal security especially will not be needed and will not be there. And these people will be there to affect it.
And that wraps up the Maze this week. Thanks for watching. I am Rosemary Kokotega. Till next week, be good.